Good evening, everyone. My name is John Tabes, and I'm the event coordinator here at McNally Robinson Booksellers. On behalf of the store, and with huge thanks to our friends at Owlkids Books, it's such a pleasure to welcome you all here, both in person and virtually, to the launch of Beautiful You, Beautiful Me, the appropriately very beautiful new picture book from Tasha Spillett-Sumner. Tasha, of course, is the author of the New York Times and CBC bestseller, I Sang You Down from the Stars, so we're particularly delighted to be here to celebrate her just sumptuous new work. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that McNally Robinson Booksellers is located here on Treaty 1 territory. That is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, the homeland of the Métis Nation. In addition, of course, McNally Robinson Booksellers itself rests on the land once occupied by the Métis community of Roostertown. Now, I will not take up too much of your time, as I'm sure everybody would like to hear from both Tasha and our host for this evening, David A. Robertson. Just a few very quick procedural notes before we get underway. After the conversation, there'll be an opportunity for all of you folks to ask questions. I will approach you, Sally Jesse Raphael style, and put a microphone into your face. If you are local, you may then ask a question of Tasha. And if you're watching virtually through our YouTube stream, please feel free to just write a question in the chat, and we'll be sure to put it to Tasha as time permits. At the close of the event, we'll be moving Tasha along to a table which is immediately beside our cash desk for the signing, and I'll have some incredibly thrilling procedural notes regarding signing immediately following the event. But for now, it's my great pleasure to introduce another incredibly good friend of the store. That would be David A. Robertson, who is a Cree author based in Winnipeg. He has published more than 20 books, including novels, children's books, and memoir. He also hosted the CBC Manitoba podcast, Kaweo. David's debut adult novel, the best-selling The Theory of Crows, came out earlier this fall, and it's just a wonderful pleasure to have him behind the microphone in yet another capacity here at the store. So to introduce Tasha and host the evening, please join me in welcoming David A. Robertson.
I could just listen to John. I care for Tasha, who's a friend of mine. Like John also. It's just when I'm tired, I can't sleep. I just want to call John up and just like, John, can you just talk to me for a few minutes, please? So nice to be here. I'm so excited for Tasha and for this book to come out. Of course, being here at McNally's is always a thrill. I did a lot of traveling, and almost universally, people say it's the best bookstore that they've been to in Canada. So it's always we're really lucky that we have it here in Winnipeg, because it's legitimately a pretty amazing bookstore, and an indie bookstore, which if you're buying, which you all will, Tasha's book, buy it at an indie. Don't buy it at Amazon. It's better for the authors. It's better for the publishing industry. It's better for the publishers. It's only good for Jeff Bezos if you buy it from Amazon. So anyway, that's not what we're here for. I just want to tell you, buy support indie bookstores. So I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm going to read Tasha's bio, but I've known Tasha for many years. And I've watched her when she first started out, and I have all of her books, so I'm kind of I'm a super fan. I have all her books. I've read all her books, and she's first of all brilliant, and she is charming and a great writer, and also a really great teacher. And I think those things kind of go hand in hand in some ways. As a big part of writing is being a good teacher too, and she's amazing at teaching. So, and I know that. I'll tell you a quick little story about this book. I bought it today here at McNally's, of course, and the first person who read it after me was my daughter Lauren, and Lauren is 12 years old, and she read it in the back seat of the car as we were driving to her hockey practice. Details. And then she finished it, and she put the book at the console between me and my wife. And she's like, Dad, this was such a heartbreaking book. And I said, what do you mean? Like, why was it heartbreaking? And she just said, it was just so beautiful. And I just thought that is such a perfect encapsulation of what this book is. Then she wanted to read it to me. So as we were driving, she read it to me, and she fell in love with it. And it is a beautiful book. So Tasha is going to read it to you, but I'm going to introduce Tasha quickly, technically with the bio. So Tasha Spillett-Sumner. Also, I don't know if I mentioned this here, but she's also a New York Times bestseller, which is pretty incredible. Draws its strength from both her Cree and Trinidadian bloodline. She's a celebrated educator and poet. And I forgot about that. She's also a really good poet. Yeah. And the author of the best-selling picture book, I Sang You Down from the Stars, which is also a gorgeous picture book. Tasha lives in Treaty 1 Territory, Manitoba, with her husband Leonard and daughter. And I think the best thing to do would be to have Tasha, first of all, give her a warm welcome, I think. You can just skip all the other stuff and just have her read us the book, because it is really a gorgeous book. So would you read it? Would you read the book?
Can I use your copy?
Of course. Will you sign it after?
For sure.
Okay.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming tonight. For the people at home, you'll see my eyes jetting away because my daughter is here. It's her first book launch. She was singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star for the people who arrived earlier. So thank you for the people at home and for the people who've come out tonight on this particularly our first cold and blustery evening. It makes me very happy to see especially so many people have been close to my family over the past 2.5 years. And this is my first book launch since I want to say I think this is my first in-person book launch since my first graphic novel launch, which was also here.
I hosted that.
Yeah, so Here we go.
I will host all your launches.
Please do. So this is Izzy's first book launch. It looks like she's procured some clip-on earrings from the gift store, so that's lovely. But I would love to read you Beautiful You, Beautiful Me, illustrated by Salini Perera. And this book is about a blend of my mom and me and Izzy and me, and hopefully for many families who maybe don't see themselves reflected in the ways that they see themselves mirrored to each other within their homes. But we all deserve storybooks about the people that we love. She's taking selfies, by the way. Beautiful you, beautiful me. Izzy loves her mama's hugs. Wrapped tight in mama's arms is Izzy's favorite place to be. Skin to skin, safe and warm. One night, wrapped tight in mama's arms, Izzy noticed something she had never noticed before. Mama's hug felt the same, safe and warm as ever, but Izzy saw that her skin and mama's skin looked different. Mama, exclaimed Izzy, we don't match. You're sand and I'm chocolate. Izzy wasn't sure how she felt about not matching Mama. When Izzy looked at Mama, she saw only beautiful things and she wanted to be just the same. But Mama pulled Izzy close. You're part of me and I'm part of you. I'm beautiful like me and you're beautiful like you. The next morning, while Mama was braiding her hair, Izzy noticed that her hair and Mama's hair were different too. Izzy's hair had big swirls and curls that jumped out from her braids. Mama's hair was smooth and straight, and her braid hung straight down the middle of her back. When they danced, Izzy's hair grew bigger and bigger, while Mama's swayed side to side like a happy puppy's tail. Mama, exclaimed Izzy, our hair doesn't match. Yours is straight and mine is curly. But Mama lovingly twirled her finger in one of Izzy's curls. You're part of me and I'm part of you. I'm beautiful like me and you're beautiful like you. Izzy wanted her hair to sway side to side like a happy puppy's tail too, but her curls kept springing up. Why couldn't she look more like Mama? Izzy wanted to be Mama's kind of beautiful. That afternoon, Mama took Izzy for a walk. They saw Mama Duck teaching her ducklings to swim. They saw Mama Cat cleaning her kittens. They saw Mama Bird feeding her nestlings. Mama, exclaimed Izzy, not all mamas and babies match, but they still belong to one another, added Mama. At bedtime, Mama looked into Izzy's big, bright eyes. Izzy, she exclaimed, our eyes don't match. Yours are earth and mine are water. Izzy gave Mama a big hug. I'm part of you and you're part of me. I'm beautiful like me and you're beautiful like you. Izzy snuggled into Mama's arms and fell asleep, safe and warm in her favorite place to be.
I wanted to hold up the picture. I know how hard it is to like do this when you're reading, so I wanted people to see the illustrations. And
Thanks for that.
You're welcome. They're gorgeous illustrations. I guess on the topic of illustrations, just because we kind of brought it up, you work with Michaela Gold, who is a really amazing American illustrator. I think she's won the Caldecott down there. And now with this new illustrator, is it Salini Perera?
Salini Perera.
Salini Perera. Can you just explain maybe what that relationship looked like for a picture book? Like, how much input did you have with her creating the images, and what did that communication look like as you went through the development of the picture book? Because it is such an important part of the work.
Definitely, like the illustrator's work is another level of storytelling that I myself just could never attain. Izzy will attest to my sketching abilities. So I always feel like that illustrator author matchmaking is a little bit of a magical and mysterious thing. Because, and maybe it's not that way for everyone, but I've seen, I write the story, the editor makes the matchmaking, and they've just hit it out of the park continuously in the books that I've been able to write. So I am so grateful for that. And in knowing my own limitations in terms of being a visual artist, which are very, very minimal, I usually just stay out of their way. Like that's the most simple way that I can say it. I have so much respect for their level of talent and for the storytelling that they, in their own right, bring to the story, that I like to just, pass the manuscript and then pretty much stay out of their way. Sometimes there's small things, not in this book, but in other books that I've written that are like very localized things, like, Cree people don't really look like this. Maybe that's more of a West Coast look, and we draw it back into contextually where we are here. But other than that, I've just been super lucky in trusting that they're going to bring their own gifts to the story and just make it come to another level.
I noticed when I was reading it, the mama looks a little bit like Leslie, your mom, and there's a little bit of you in there too. So was there though visual references that you provided to the illustrator?
No, and that's where the magic is, because when I look at Izzy in the book, I see Izzy, my girl.
Yeah.
But Salini, the illustrator, never saw Izzy, my girl. She was modeling Izzy after her niece. And so I just thought it was so special that she chose somebody in her life that she wanted to be able to see reflected on the page. And it just ended up kind of being a blend of also people in my life that created the same motivation for me writing the story.
That's pretty cool. I gotta tell you this. This is totally your lodge, but I'll tell you about the magic of this. When on the trap line, when Julie did the illustrations and she sent the pictures of the grandfather to me, it was he was wearing the exact same clothes my dad was wearing when we went to the trap line together, which was, I think it's the same kind of thing where it's like sometimes there's this magic thing that happens with literature, with illustrations.
Like, I'm not sure how you feel about writing the stories, but I feel like the stories that I've written that are really like, when I'm like, yeah, that's it. Like, it had that magic feeling. Don't feel like I necessarily wrote them. It feels like they just, like, I was just in the right space at the right time, and they just kind of like descended upon me and then came through me. And so, like, I think that in thinking of stories in that way, like things like Julie magically writing a character or drawing a character wearing the clothes of your dad, that's just like, the sparks of magic that exist when we allow ourselves to be vessels of the story rather than really like forcing ourselves to write the story.
Yeah, that's actually a really great way to put it. From this story to the last story, one of the things I've noticed when I read this one is I love Destiny Down to the Stars. It's such a gorgeous book. I feel like, and I think this is true of just a writer, like going through the development and from of just a career, of the journey of a career. This book seems a lot more like, not a lot more, but more refined, and the structure is so gorgeous of it, like with the repetition and the flow, and it's done so perfectly. Do you want to talk about just like the things that you've learned from your first picture book and what you've incorporated or changed or just grown from in writing the manuscript for the second picture book? Is there things that you've learned about repetition and rhythm and all those things that you kind of either just like learned from doing the first one or from reading more stuff, or like, what did that look like for you?
Well, I've been taking this really intense and interactive course called Parenthood. Yeah. And there's a lot of reading storybooks involved. So I think that's it. We read since Izzy was months, a couple months old, reading before every nap time and before bedtime is just something that we do. And so we probably read, 5 or 6 books in a day. And so I think that being able to engage with the work of other authors has really, like you said, refined the stories that I want to tell, and just knowing, like having a better sense of what the story time relationship looks like. Those, 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the day when everyone has done what they need to do, and it's just you, the children, and the story. And, it's such a sacred time of the day. And so I think that just writing for those moments, what are those last thoughts that you want floating in a child's head right before they go to sleep, are really what has shaped the development of my writing since the last picture book.
Yeah, no, it's for sure. And I think like a good lesson for like writers is the best teachers you can have are just the books that you read, and that's a great example of it. Your first book was a huge success, a New York Times bestseller. In working on this book, which I think is as good, if not better, than your last book. Did you feel any sort of pressure in following it up?
Like, I still feel like I've been punked being on the New York Times bestseller list, if I'm honest. So I think I actually shared this with you. I sometimes feel like, you like maybe I've peaked too early and I'll always be tracing that. And I tried to I think I felt that right after, it was excitement for the New York Times bestselling list, and then also oh gosh, how do I follow that up? And each story is its own story, and each story will live its life in the way that it's going to live its life. And that it was completely unforeseen to me, the life that I see Down in the Stars has been living. And I consciously try not to cast the shadow of that book on other stories, because I want them to live their own lives independently also. But yeah, definite pressure for sure.
Yeah, you're right, but every story is its own thing, and you can't allow one story to affect how you work on the next one in that sort of way, I think.
And I think something that I learned from working on my doctorate is that no single project represents your life's work. It's just something that you're doing right now. So I Singing Down from the Stars, that's something that I was doing at that time in my life. This is something I was doing when early into my parenthood. My doctorate was something that I was doing at that particular point in my life. But it's not my life's work. If anything is my life's work, it's that little girl sitting right there,
Absolutely. I mean, that's the legacy right there for sure. I mean, this stuff
Who's saying that this is boring, by the way?
Well, the kids have no filter, but I hope it's not boring. She just wants to go back up and get some more earrings. So who can blame her? But I will say though, you're building a very impressive catalog of literature.
Yeah, thank you. So I mean, I haven't written 20 books, and I don't have 5 kids at the same time like some people, but I do try my best to contribute to, the important, Brett Houston is also here, and also an amazing author.
He's
so
all right.
We're doing the work, right? So our kids have texts to reach for and learn about ourselves in the way that we want our children to learn about us, but also, which I didn't realize until I had Izzy, so that other children learn about ourselves and our families in the ways that uphold our own dignity, which is so important. And having an Indigenous daughter like we do, I feel like it's even it's life protecting work that we do to create narratives in which affirm our dignity. So when people see our girls walking on the streets, walking the mall, walking in schools, they look at our girls in the way that we would like them to be looked at.
I'll just say, you don't have to be anything like Dave Robertson. You're Tasha Spillett, and that is pretty freaking special. So there's no comparison there. There doesn't have to be. I think that we all have our own stuff, and I'm so proud of what you're doing, and for you to be a friend of mine. I just want to say that this is not a competition at all. We're doing our own stuff, and you're doing special work, and I'll tell you the impact of it. My daughter is lighter skinned, and reading this book, I could tell it resonated with her. And it's almost like in the reverse, because in this book, they're comparing the daughter has darker skin than the mom, and is noticing the differences and wondering, what does that mean for me in a childlike way, in a really believable childlike way. And my daughter I think has felt the same way sometimes, where all my kids are, well, you see my kids, all my kids are dark skinned, and then Lauren is not. And so sometimes it's this thing is well, how do I fit in here? And your book helped her, I think, see that. And that's the power of literature.
I'm glad to know it.
Yeah, but so the impact is, and on that note, and I think I could know the answer to that, but for this book, what do you want to see happen from it? Is that the kind of thing you want to see happen from it? Is for girls, boys to read this and just think that they're just great just the way they are. They don't have to be any different.
If I imagine the perfect way of it landing in the hearts and minds of families is just that like that sense of belonging is just really made solid within families, however families come together. And I think that that's kind of my wish for the book. Also, having become a pandemic parent, nobody is supposed to parent in isolation. And I feel like we're just figuring out what that means, like how to create communities of care for ourselves as parents, for our children. I Singing Down from the Stars was really incredible and important for me personally in connecting me with other new parents during that time. And I hope that Beautiful You, Beautiful Me kind of continues to make those communities of care with other parents, because being a parent can be tough, and I really feel like we need to have a sense of camaraderie with each other.
Yeah, for sure. I remember, as much as we know each other, I also know you from Instagram. And I remember just this thing where I think it was Izzy was like maybe just turning 1 or after 1. And I saw this post of hers where she was like, she had done something for the first time. And it was like something that seemed like, like I think it was almost like touching your feet to the grass or something. It was something in public or something. And I thought, that's the world that she's growing up in. It's just so like different from, and just thought of that from like being a pandemic baby and being a pandemic mom, and how the challenges are so different than what it would have been normally. Yeah. And there's not really a question there, I'm just like thinking out loud.
And it was things like, I think what you're thinking of is her walking out ceremony. So just
yes.
After she turned 1, and like the spring after she turned 1, we took her to Manitowoc in the Petra Forms, and she touched her feet to the ground for the first time.
Yes.
And at that time, typically like in the circles that we have, like this would be like a widely attended event, like people would come and there'd be a feast. But at that time, it was the restrictions were so strict that it was just a few of us there, but it was just as special and important.
Yeah, totally. I have a couple more questions, and I want, I don't even know what time it is. I could also honestly talk to you all night, but and then we're gonna see people who have questions for you as well. I always like as a writer myself, and thinking about like craft and where ideas come from. Like I find sometimes with picture books, especially, it's almost like a line or like a spark that like kind of you grab it, and then you kind of are able to build out from that one thing. And I'm wondering, like, for this book, what did that look like for you? Like, where was the first, like, and this is kind of like when I asked my daughter Laura, and I said, like, what do you want me to ask Tasha for you? And it was this, it was like, what her question was, what inspired you to write that book? And I think it's the same thing. It's like, where was that spark for this book? Like, where did it come from? Like, what was the first time you thought of it? And then kind of structured it into a story.
So, as a multiracial person myself, I think that that I was kind of writing for the little me in some ways, but also when Izzy started her features really started to show themselves. I remember looking at her and just thinking, like she's such a beautiful little girl. And it's interesting because, you mix genes and you don't know how, like, it's like a crazy science experiment. You don't know like what the outcome will be. So Izzy has features that are very very from my Black heritage.
Yeah.
And more so than I thought she would. And it really brought home for me my own responsibility to connect more deeply to my Black heritage, and also to create stories specifically for families with members who look very, very different. Because wouldn't it be a shame if our kids, grew up not feeling deeply connected to who they are, even when their physical features, even when they might be coded as something different in the worlds that they walk in.
Yeah, and I think stories can help kids center themselves and kind of help them to find or solidify their identity and who they are. And I think this book is one that will help do that as well. So you've written 2 picture books now and 2 graphic novels. What kind of like forms of literature do you want to work in? Like what is there kind of books that you haven't done yet that you have ambitions to do, or do you want to stay in the children's world, or eventually write some stuff for adults? And like what is it? What are your hopes and dreams for where you want to go from here?
I love writing picture books, and I almost feel like the kind of like my writing will mature. I can foresee it maturing alongside Izzy's kind of reading level. And I've always felt like this. I feel like I write poetry most naturally because I have a little bit of commitment issues when it comes to writing. Like I have I have the feeling and like the thought is there, and I just want to kind of like get in, get out. There it is. And like I do have concepts for longer books, but I just haven't come to a point where I feel confident that I can bring the story from start to end without rushing it to the end. And maybe like I think at some point I will get there when I can, really work through characters and story development. But right now I love like the picture book that it's like you're working with somebody else to tell the story, and it's relatively short. So yeah, commitment issues.
Yeah, I think it's also like, I think it is like time issues too, where it's like a novel is such a huge, if you think about it, it's like between 60,000 and 90,000 words. And it, can be kind of intimidating to.
I mean, I have written a dissertation at this point, which is
true.
I mean, so I can do it, which is a good reminder to myself that maybe it's just to take that leap, because I kind of stumbled upon being an author, if I'm completely honest. Like, it was the folks at High Water Press who shoulder tapped me to write my first. I didn't seek it.
Right.
So I think it's kind of like maybe a not a typical entrance into the publishing world. But now that I'm in it, I feel like I found kind of like my people, so we just keep on going.
Yeah. So I started my own imprint, and I'll be texting you about that. Really?
Well, good. Yeah. Okay.
How about I pitch out there publicly so you're committed?
Yeah. No, I do. I would like to write some longer stories, and I'm so grateful for the mentorship that exists. To really build skills, because I think that that's something that I'll be relying on more, is to like continue to build skills to get to those 6,000, those larger page counts.
Yeah. Well, we need more people like you. You're totally an inspiration and a role model. I know that you are instantly to my girl, and that even brings you up even higher than I thought you could get in my books. So you're a gem. So I'm really happy to know you, and I'm so proud of you. I want to open up to the floor and see if anybody has any questions for Tasha about this book or anything that they want to know. Does anybody have any questions that they want to ask?
And we do have some questions from online as well.
Oh, okay.
Let's start off with one of those. These somewhat touch on what you've already been discussing, Tasha, but Leo Speaks mentions that your book is absolutely beautiful and that she loves the meaning behind it. She was wondering, I know you touched a little bit on the inspiration for the book, but do you remember the day you decided to piece this story together?
Oh, that's such a good question. When did I decide to write this story? I think that it just felt like time to write a new story also, I See Down from the Stars was settling, and I think that I kind of felt called to write the next story. And after this, the next stories are already they exist on somebody's desktop right now, going through the illustration phases and the editorial phases. And so I don't remember the exact day, but definitely, I would say that early or mid, we're 2.5 years into the pandemic now, so like mid-pandemic, I would say, it just felt like time to write the next story. And writing those picture books is so cathartic to me, because it gives me a creative outlet. I've been working on my doctorate degree for the past 6 years now, and it's been so intense in terms of thinking really critically around some really important things. But I know that the readership of my doctoral will be so limited, and so mobilizing knowledge through picture books, through graphic novels has been such an important part of like showing reciprocity for the community, so that like the work and the energy actually gets back into the hands of community rather than just sitting on a shelf in a university library somewhere.
I feel a little triggered that you said that was such a good question. I'm supposed to be the interviewer here, but that's okay.
Do you want to take a long sip of your drink?
I was like, oh, I was just so.
I was also a little bit triggered.
Of course I did that. You're really good at working through. Can you talk though? I wonder, like, the picture books, I mean, the word count is low, but I have found is the hardest form of literature. Can you speak to that? Like, just how much?
I've heard people say that.
Do you not find that?
I do not find that.
Oh my gosh, you must be just so good at it.
Like, I don't know. I just like, it's just, I have I have notes in my phone, and the story just comes. I write the story. It does not take very long. It's the refining of the story that takes so long. But I don't I've heard that on so many panels that people who have also written novels say that the picture book is the hardest for them to write, and I just
think so too.
don't find that.
Well, yeah, but when you write a novel, you'll compare it.
Yeah, maybe that's
and you'll
true.
think Dave was right. Picture books are
I'll
really hard.
I'll get back to you.
But I will say, like, the refining, revising, perfecting it is where the work is. The real work is
Definitely.
in a picture book. Yeah, I mean, it has, because every word has to be just
and
perfect.
every word, word counts.
Yeah, and it is in this one. This is another endorsement.
Oh yeah,
that's great. There's more questions online, Don, or anybody here yet? Or
we do have a question online. If there's anyone who has a question very locally. Well, Demi mentions that the book is beautiful as well, and also mentions that we love you, Tasha. Can you tell us about what you'd like to do next? Is there another book coming soon?
Yeah, so I'm assuming this is Danae Sinclair, who I also love very much.
Hi, Danae.
We all love. My favorite Sinclair. I've said on the record many times. So there is one more graphic novel, the third and final volume of Surviving the City, which is coming out in 2024, and then a picture book with Little Brown, again the same that published I Sing Down from the Stars, same editor Susan Rich, and that picture book is called Raven's Ribbons, and I'm excited for that one. I'm nervous about one that one is the one that's closest to reflecting the findings of my research, which is on gender within Indigenous land-based education, and does a little bit of work about pushing back against what we now understand to be Indigenous traditional protocols. So I feel like it's an important one, but one that I'm a little bit nervous how the reception of that particular story will be.
I think that though, I mean, speaking from the other side of it, like it's increasingly a really important issue that a lot of people are talking about. So that could be a very timely book. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I hope so. And I think that it is important, it's all about belonging too, you know, we absolutely can't afford to be the factor that pushes our own relatives outside of our circles of care where we know that they're the most safe.
Absolutely, yeah.
In reference to your own earlier comment, David, you'll be reassured to know that there is a little bit of praise for your hosting as well. Diane mentions it is a real pleasure listening to David and Tasha interact and talk about the book and other interesting facts about life. Diane was wondering if there was going to be a guest appearance from Izzy at all this evening.
Oh, yeah. Izzy, you want to come see Mama? Get the stuff.
Oh my goodness,
Under,
he's the cutest kid ever.
There.
Tabasonic is tied. I saw him there as well, I think. Is he still here? Tabasonic.
Can you say hi? Who's your?
I don't want to.
No. You missing me? Okay, there she is.
So cute.
Fantastic. And were there any other questions locally at all? Well, if there are no further questions from online or locally, if you folks have any closing comments you might like to offer, or anything you'd like to say at the end of the event.
Well, I just want to say, again, I think this is a book that I think is going to do very well. It is going to resonate with a lot of people. I think that, you know, we have this idea of what it means to look Indigenous or to look, and it doesn't, you don't look one way if you're Indigenous. And I think that this is a book that speaks to the importance of knowing yourself and loving yourself for who you are and your whatever makes up who you are. And I think it's going to be a book that a lot of kids are going to hold close to them, and parents too. So it's really a beautiful book. And I saw that right in my daughter's eyes, which means the world to me. And again, I just want to thank you for writing it, because I saw that today was a really special moment with my girl, and it was because of your book. So and thanks for asking me to host. And so, but the last words are for you. What do you want to say?
Mommy, what?
Or maybe the last words are for Izzy.
Well, thank you all for making the time to come and for being and for being such an important part of our lives, and for supporting me to do the work that I'm able to do. I absolutely, I know very deeply that people don't do any big and beautiful things on their own, that lots of hearts and hands are involved in that work. I love you too, baby. Okay, so that's a wrap. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, folks. We'll now be moving along to the signing portion of the evening. So we'll be moving Tasha to a table, which is just beside our cash desk, where she'll be signing copies of her book. Feel free to get a copy signed before you pay for it. Please do pay for the book at some point this evening. We also have copies at the cash desk available as well. So one way or another, we'll be able to press a copy of this beautiful book into your hand. I just wanted to close by thanking once again Owlkids for all your help with this evening, and for publishing this wonderful book, to David for his hosting, to Izzy for her incomparable guest appearance, and of course to Tasha Spillett-Sumner. It's been such a pleasure celebrating today.